Hey everyone, we're taking a look at airports that present unique challenges to pilots and passengers, from short runways perched on cliff edges to high-altitude locations surrounded by mountains. We're taking a look at 15 of the most dangerous airports in the world. Let's begin today with number 15, the Courchevel International Airport in France. Courchevel Airport is an altiport serving Courchevel, a ski resort in the French Alps. The airfield has a very short runway of only 1,762 feet with a gradient of 18.6%. There's no go-around procedure here for landings at Courchevel due to the surrounding mountainous terrain. The airfield primarily sees use by smaller fixed-wing craft like a Cessna 208 Caravan or a Pilatus PC-12, as well as helicopters, and the runway has no instrument approach either, or lighting aids, making landing in fog or low clouds pretty unsafe. The History Channel show Most Extreme Airports ranks this as the 7th most extreme airport in the world, and it's also featured in films including PC-12 crashed on landing, with the aircraft overrunning onto a snow-covered embankment and a wing being torn off. There were 2 crew members on board and no fatalities, so yep, pretty dangerous airport to land at. Number 14, Paro Airport, Bhutan. Bhutan International Airport is the sole international airport of the 4 airports in Bhutan. It's 3.5 miles from Paro in a deep valley on the bank of a river. With surrounding peaks as high as 18,000 feet, it is considered one of the world's most challenging airports, and only a very small number of pilots are certified to land there. In 1968, the Indian Border Roads Organization built an airstrip in the Paro Valley, which was initially used for on-call helicopter operations by the Indian Armed Forces on behalf of the royal government of Bhutan. Now, Bhutan's first airline, Druk Air, was established by royal charter on the 5th of April 1981. The airport was constructed with a 3,900-foot runway, giving the Bhutanese government specific requirements. They required an 8 approach. One specific red cliffside home is the key focal point for pilots on their approach. Number 13, Wancho Ioraskin Airport in Sabah. The Wancho Ioraskin Airport is on the Dutch Caribbean island of Sabah. Its runway is widely acknowledged as the shortest commercial runway in the world, with a length of 400 meters. The airport, named after the minister Wancho Ioraskin, has the shortest commercial runway in the world, only 1,312 feet long, flanked on one side by very high hills. The airport's closed to jet traffic, but regional airline propeller craft are able to land there under waivers from the Netherlands Antilles Civil Aviation Authority. The most common aircraft to land here are the stall craft, the short takeoff and landing ones, like the de Havilland Canada DH-6C Twin Otter and the Britain Norman BN-2 Islander. Jet aircraft are unable to land here because the runway is way too short. The ramp also has a designated helipad. The terminal building houses off-ily owned Flat Point as the site for the airport. The land was cleared and graded in only a couple of weeks, and Tehanen made the first landing on an aircraft on the island of Sabah in February 9, 1959, with nearly the entire population of the island in attendance. Number 12, Metekane Airstrip, Lesotho. And now an airport, or airstrip to be specific, which is widely known as the world's scariest runway, which, needless to say, is pretty unique, but it's also a living nightmare to take off from. When it comes to taking off, Metekane Airstrip is a genuine hair-raiser. Things start out looking pretty normal as your plane picks up speed on the ground. It's only when you reach the end of the 1,600-foot-long grass strip that you'll notice something weird. You know that feeling you get in your stomach when you're on a roller coaster? Yeah, you're free-falling. Metekane's airstrip short runway ends abruptly at the top of a 1,900-foot-tall cliff, leading to a very thin margin of error for taking off and landing. The strip is found in the heartlands of Lesotho. Number 11, Wellington International Airport, New Zealand. Wellington's got a reputation for sometimes rough and turbulent landings, even in larger aircraft, due to the channeling effect of the Cook Strait, creating a strong and gusty wind, especially in prefrontal northwesterly conditions. Formerly known as Rongotai Airport, it's an international airport located in the suburb of Rongotai in Wellington, the capital of New Zealand, which serves as a hub for Air New Zealand and Sounds Air. Wellington is a joint venture between Infratil and the Wellington City Council, which operates the airport, and Wellington is the 3rd busiest airport in New Zealand after Auckland and Christchurch, handling a total of over 3.4 million passengers in the year ending June 2022. It is home to some of the smaller general aviation businesses, including Wellington Aero Club, which operates from the general aviation area on the western side of the runway. The airport comprises about a small 270-acre site on the Rongotai Isthmus, a stretch of low-lying land between Wellington and Okahea Air Base, where it was stranded for several months while being repaired. In 1963, Vickers 807 Viscount ZKBWO, City of Dunedin, of the National Airways Corporation overran the southern end of the runway, ended up being damaged down an embankment of the adjacent public road. And in 1991, United Airlines Boeing 747 made an emergency landing here after its intended destination, Auckland Airport, was closed by fog. It was estimated that if the plane had continued to its planned alternate destination, Christchurch, it would have had an unacceptable 15 minutes of fuel on board. Number 10. Williams Field, Antarctica. Well, you can see why this airport, or airstrip, made this list. Williams Field, or Willie Field, is a United States Antarctic Program airfield in Antarctica. Williams Field consists of 2 snow runways located on approximately 25 feet of compacted snow, lying on top of 8 to 10 feet of ice, floating over 1,800 feet of water. The airport, which is about housed at Williams, lived in buildings constructed on sleds to facilitate relocation. In 1994, the National Science Foundation constructed 2 dorm buildings at McMurdo. Transport to Williams Field uses various vehicles, including foremost Delta II and Ford E350 vans. And yeah, you guessed it, there have indeed been a number of incidents and accidents. In 1956, a Douglas C-124 Globemaster II of the USAF was damaged beyond repair when the nose gear failed. All 17 occupants survived. The plane's parts were used to fix 2 other Globemasters damaged in accidents at McMurdo. In 1957, a Douglas RD-4-6L of the U.S. Navy crashed on takeoff due to water freezing in the fuel lines. There were no fatalities and the plane was written off. And in 1971, a Lockheed LC-130 Hercules of the U.S. Navy crashed on takeoff in poor visibility when the main left ski hit a 5.5-foot snowbank and the right wing hit the ground and broke between engines. The aircraft was destroyed by fire. There were no fatalities. The plane formed the year after the airport opened. So what makes it dangerous to land at? Well, the airport has a very low-altitude flyover landing approach because one end of its runway is extremely close to the shore and Maho Beach. In other words, planes appear to be coming into land just feet above the heads of the public. The proximity of Maho Beach to the runway has made the airport one of the world's favorite places among plane spotters, despite the dangers. But in 2017, a New Zealand woman died from injuries sustained by jet blast from a departing aircraft, and tourists have been often criticized for their dangerous behavior on the beach. As you might expect, this place has also seen its fair share of accidents. In 1972, a de Havilland Twin Otter operated by Air Guadeloupe on behalf of Air France crashed at night into the ocean near St. Martin, en route from Guadeloupe. All 11 passengers on board, along with both pilots, died. In 2014, Skyway Enterprises Flight 7101, a Shorts SD-360 on behalf of FedEx, from St. Martin to San Juan with a crew of 2, was climbing out of St. Martin's runway. The airfield at Narsarsuaq was built by the United States Department of War, now the Defense Department, as an Army air base, and its construction began in July of 1941. And the first aircraft landing happened in January 1942. During the World War II, the airbase codenamed Bluey West 1 hosted squadrons of Catalina flying boats and B-25 Mitchell bombers with the assignment to escort Allied convoys and track destroyed German subs. After the war, the airport served as a regional focus city for Air Greenland until the late 2000s, when tough economic conditions forced the airline to raise the low season prices several times. The new airport in Karkatok is currently under construction and is scheduled to open in 2025. This eliminates the need for the Narsarsuaq as a domestic and Iceland-bound gateway to South Greenland. In 2022, the Greenlandic government decided that Narsarsuaq should be downscaled to a heliport, losing the runway. General aviation, historic planes, and ferry flights crossing the North Atlantic. I guess so you can make a last-minute decision to travel by rail if you suddenly feel airsick. And needless to say, it makes the average landing far from average. With 3 grass runways and 1 main runway, it intersects with the National Railway Line. When the airport was first built, the rail line had been at the end of the runway, but the runway had since been extended across the line, so 2/3 of the runway is on one side of the railway line. The airport was critical in a region that was challenging to drive to. Passenger numbers through the airport had steadily increased over the years, as was the case with most regional airports as flying became more available. And in March of 2023, about 210,000 passengers passed through this airport. In the first year, the number was above 200,000, and the types of people flying had changed markedly. Now, more tourists and people connecting with friends and family, for example, people working in the mines in Australia, are flying into Gisborne. And while fares aren't cheap, they were way more affordable than they were 30 years ago. Early model Boeing 737s had landed here at the airport, but the rough electricity to power over 1,000 typical homes, which is pretty nice. Number 6. Barra International Airport in Scotland. This airport is located on a Scottish beach in the shallow bay of a remote island, so pilots flying to the airport have to worry about severe weather conditions as well as the rising tides. The airport is only 5 feet above sea level, and all 3 runways are completely submerged during high tide. Barra Airport is a short runway airport, or a stall port, situated in the wide shallow bay of Moor at the northern tip of the island of Barra in the Outer Hebrides in Scotland. And once again, the airport is unique, and it's believed to be the only one in the world where scheduled flights use a tidal beach as the runway. Barra Airport opened in 1936, and the only destination is Glasgow. The beach is also popular with visitors and cockle pickers who are asked to observe the windsock to see if the airport's in operation. In 2011, Barra Airport was voted Islands Airport Limited. The aerodrome is not licensed for night use. Number 5. Tioman Airport in Malaysia. The landing at Tioman Airport has pilots heading straight for a mountain and then making a quick 90-degree turn to line up with the runway. This one-way landing has to be very fast since the end of the runway has a cliff at it with a steep fall into the water. Tioman Airport is on the beautiful island of Tioman off the coast of Malaysia, and the island's only about 39 kilometers long and about 12 kilometers at its widest point, and it's only about 32 kilometers from the mainland. There are 8 villages here offering various standards of accommodation and facilities, but they all have in common the wonderful white sand beaches and crystal clear blue sea. A new airport for Tioman was supposed to have been started in 2004. It would have seen the airport site move some 2 kilometers up to Kampung Paya and been built on reclaimed land. The plan was put forward to include a 2,000-meter-long as RAF Gibraltar. Civilian operators use the civilian-operated terminal, and National Air Traffic Services hold a contract for provision of air navigation. Winston Churchill Avenue, the main road heading towards the land border with Spain, intersects the airport runway and consequently has to be closed every time an aircraft needs to land or depart. This short runway also abruptly ends at the sea on both ends, forcing pilots to hit the brakes immediately after landing. So yeah, that's not too great. The History Channel program Most Extreme Airports ranked this one the 5th most extreme in the world. It's exposed to strong crosswinds around the Rock of Gibraltar, which makes landings in winter really challenging. A custom-painted Boeing 737 was used in conjunction with a fleet of the cars, and the airport appeared on the Channel 5 series Gibraltar, Britain in the Sun, which was broadcast from June to July of 2013. The airstrip and the Four Corners border crossing feature at the end of Carol Reed's 1963 production of The Running Man. Several takes were shot as Remick and Harvey Chiligo and Autonomous Region of Madeira. It mostly hosts flights to European metropolitan destinations due to Madeira's importance as a leisure destination. It is the 4th busiest airport in Portugal, and it's named after Madeira native Cristiano Ronaldo, considered one of the greatest footballers of all time. During its renaming ceremony in 2017, the airport drew in media notoriety for an infamous bust of Ronaldo unveiled at the ceremony. Now it's been replaced. As already mentioned, the airport is considered one of the most peculiarly perilous airports in the world due to its location and its spectacular runway construction. A limited amount of pilots are technically qualified to fly into this airport after completing advanced training on a sim. The airport involves coordinated efforts in spotting landmarks on approach since there's no instrument landing here. The airport is also dangerous due to those strong winds and high mountains on one side and the ocean on the other. Number 2. Svalbard Airport in Norway. The airport was opened on the 2nd of September 1975, and in 2014 the airport handled about 154,000 passengers. Lufttransport provides services to 2 other airports on Svalbard using Dornier 228 turbopropped aircraft. There are also regular chartered flights, but with that said, many of the other entries on our list, this airport has seen a few accidents. In 1986, a Cessna 185 crashed immediately after leaving Svalbard Airport en route to Ny-Ålesund, killing all 6 on board. And in 1996, Vnukovo Airlines Flight 2801 from Vnukovo Airport in Moscow crashed into a mountain about 14 kilometers from the airport. All 141 people on board the Tupolev Tu-154 died, making it the worst air crash in Norwegian history. Number 1. Lukla Airport in Nepal. Tenzing Hillary Airport is frequently referred to as the most dangerous airport in the world. Arriving and departing here must use a single runway, 06 for landing and 24 for takeoff. There are daily flights between Lukla and Kathmandu during daylight hours in good weather, although the flying distance is short. Rain does commonly happen in Lukla while the sun is shining brightly in Kathmandu. The airport was built in 1964 under the supervision of Sir Edmund Hillary, who originally intended to build it on flat farmland. However, local farmers didn't want to give up their land, so the airport was built in its current position. Hillary bought the land from local Sherpas for about $2,600 and involved them in the building facilities. It's been said that Hillary was unhappy with the runway's soil resistance and that his solution was to buy local liquor for the Sherpas and ask them to perform a foot-stomping dance to flatten the land that served the runway. The runway wasn't paved until 2001, and in 2008 the airport was renamed in honor of Sherpa Tenzing Norgay and Sir Edmund Hillary, the first people confirmed to have reached the summit of Mount Everest and also